Welcome to Unlocking Your Truth, another podcast by Dr. Lesley Phillips.
Everyone, welcome to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley. We've been doing the last few weeks, we've been doing a series about what gets in your way of being able to access your intuition. And we've talked about a whole bunch of things, how to quiet your busy mind, how to calm your emotions, how to let go of perfectionism, how to be in a state of non-resistance and more. And today is the last in that series. And so to finish it off, I thought what we would do is talk about, well, now you've cleared the blocks to your intuition and you are able to confidently tune in and know that's my intuition talking. But then the next step is to actually act on it. And that can be the next stumbling block that people encounter, because it is one thing to be able to recognize your intuitive voice. It's an entirely different thing to, to change your life on the basis of it.
Isn't that so true though? It's incredible how inside you know something. You should go this way with something, but yet you go the other way.
And you watch yourself doing it.
Yeah. And you go, why did I do that?
Or why am I doing this?
Yeah, I find that with traffic a lot, Dr. Lesley. I'll say, oh, maybe I should take the bridge today. No, I'll go by the bypass. No, you should take the bridge. No, I'll take the bypass. Then you sit in traffic for 45 minutes, right?
Yeah, and thank you for that, because that's a really good segue into my top 10 tips on this. Because the first one is start small. Choose something little to practice with, like what route shall I take to work today? Because if you choose immediately something really big, like should I stay in my marriage or leave, or should I leave my job and start a new career? Those are major decisions, and you're setting the hurdle there quite high if you have an issue acting on your intuition. So you might want to work your way up to those larger decisions and start with small things like
world peace.
Should I accept that dinner invitation from that chap who asked me out last night? Or where should I go on vacation? Or, shall I take the highway to work? And, the other one is be playful. Don't take it seriously. I mean, yes, you're aiming to get to the point where you can have your life directed by your intuition, but you don't want it to get too serious. So I knew a lady once who told me that the way that she developed her intuition was she did it while she was waiting for the bus. So she would intuitively tune into whether she should wait at the bus stop, whether she had time to walk to the next bus stop, or how long she expected that the bus would be before it arrived. And she just played this little game with herself as every day she used the bus, and it really worked for her. When she was right, it helped her validate her intuition, and as she kept track of that, she grew more and more confident in her intuition. And the consequences, of course, for that kind of smaller thing were small, and so it was a fun way for her to practice. So that's another tip. You can create your own games like that are fun and light and easy, and it can help set you on the path to listening to and acting on your intuition.
Even foods that your body wants. Listen to your body. It's actually intuition as well, and most people don't realize it when their body is saying, I want a piece of fruit, and they go, nah, a bag of chips. Your body is telling you something. And,
yes, it's a good
you
one.
have to be intuitive. You have to stay in tune to it.
Mm-hmm. And also recognize what's your voice versus someone else's voice. I'm going to go off on a tangent here, but, because I'm a microbiologist originally, and, what's one thing that's really fascinating to me is that there are more microbial cells in your physical body than there are human cells. And they're studying the human microbiome, and they're discovering that the microbes that inhabit your body can actually impact your decision making. And so sometimes when you think your body's going, sugar, ice cream, candy, it's actually Candida or something like that that's telling you that. So yes, listen to your body, but make sure you know what's the true voice of your body. And then another tip, we've talked about this before, but be neutral, because your ego and your emotions can be forces to be reckoned with, and they can distort your perception and can prevent you from following your intuition. So recognize the difference between your ego or emotions telling you to do something versus your inner voice.
Wouldn't that preclude, though, that you can actually, and we've talked about this in other shows, but actually discern between the ego and your inner voice?
Well, exactly. And so tonight's show is the culmination of having already given some tips around how to discern those voices. But yes, you would have to get to the point where you were able to determine and distinguish what was your intuition.
And you can listen to some of those other the other shows in the series as well, because we do have them on file.
Yeah, if you go onto CIVL and you go into the podcast section, you can listen to all of those over the last 2 months. Then the next one I noted down is examine your beliefs, and this really runs through everything. But if you believe that you should always put other people first, for example, or if you believe that you are not good enough to follow your dreams, then those types of beliefs might prevent you from following and acting on your intuition as well. So we're constantly through this whole spiritual journey working on deprogramming self-limiting beliefs. And then validate how you are already using your intuition, because most people rely on their intuition sometimes, even if they don't call it that. So just think about over the last few weeks or so, if there was a time you had to make a split-second decision and there wasn't time to pause and think and use your logical mind, then most likely you made that decision based on an intuitive insight. So just think back about times when you've done that and validate your ability to act on your intuition and how you are already doing it, and then just start noticing it more. And you know what? If you have a job like a nurse or a doctor or a policeman or a pilot or in the military or a businessman, there's plenty of studies that show that people in those type of jobs are using their intuition all the time, because they're the type of people who have to decide immediately on a course of action. If you're a nurse or a doctor in the emergency room, you can't spend the time to consult your medical textbooks or Google the answer. You have, if you're going to save somebody's life, you have to do it there and then. Or think about your hobbies, because they've also looked at people playing sports, and oftentimes people playing sports are making intuitive decisions.
Well, it's also people in the trades. I mean, it's not just professionals, like carpenters, electricians, and all these people when they're working. Like an electrician, for instance, if he has to run a new wire and has to drill a hole in the wall, he has to think and like if his intuition says, "Hang on, stop, don't do that," he could be drilling into another wire or pipe or something like that.
Yeah, no, exactly. And mothers, we talk about women's intuition. It's a real thing. They've done studies on pregnant women, and they predict, I think it's about, I can't remember the statistics, but it's up there. It's 80 or 90% of the time they know the sex of their child, without being told by the doctor. And that's way above chance that that they're able to do that.
There's also one really important one. Excuse me. One really important one that we do every day and is can be life-threatening, but we do it with our minds closed half the time, and that's drive. Stay tuned. Stay in tune to your intuition at that point as well, because that really helps. I'm always tuned into the drivers in front of me and what they'll be doing, so that I can feel what they're going to be doing before they do it themselves. I know when somebody's going to turn into my lane before they do half the time.
Exactly. So think about what you do in a normal day where you might already be using your intuition, so that you can just start to validate that you do have intuition and you are already acting on it and you're just wanting to expand it. And then the other thing is just practice. The more you practice following your intuition, you can start small and then you can expand it. But practice, because the more you do that, the more you validate it, the more you see that you're making good decisions on the basis of it, then the more comfortable you will feel relying on it in future situations. You'll trust it more. And of course, we learn as humans through repetition. We have a certain comfort zone when we do something more frequently. So the more that you make intuition-based choices, the more that you can make intuition-based choices, and the more consistent you will use it in your life. And then, of course, the other part of that is, once you've established a sort of a baseline, a foundation of some simple things and some small things, expand it. Try using your intuition in some other areas, so that you're starting to develop those patterns of experience with using it for a wider range of things. So then you expand it out into all areas of your life. Now, the other one is manage external influences. A lot of people have a tendency, when they have a decision to make or they're wanting to choose what to do, they'll go and ask their friends, what do you think about this? Or I'm planning on doing this, so do you think that's a good idea? And they ask for feedback to validate if their choice is reasonable. And sometimes you can end up more confused if your friend has not got the same opinion or ideas that you do, and it can actually stop you in your tracks and stop you from following your intuition. So at least look for friends to consult who are capable of being neutral, instead of manipulating or steering you in a particular direction. Now, of course, if you're wanting to use your intuition at work, sometimes you do need to communicate with others. You don't want to be seen as an autocrat or a crazy flaky person and be alienated. You don't want your decisions to be undermined. So number one, I choose your learning environment, but if you do apply it to the workplace, then you might need to align your intuitive insight and decision with a little bit of logic to back it up that's going to make sense to other people and get them on board, because that can make it much easier for you. So and then another one is take a leap of faith. Some of this just has to be based on faith. Just do it. There's a book by Richard Branson, Screw It, Let's Do It. You just got to screw it, let's do it. And just take a leap of faith and act on your intuition. I remember I've lived in Vancouver for about 16 years, but when I first came here from England, it was on the basis of an intuitive guidance dream that I had. I had a dream where I jumped off the top of a mountain and landed in English Bay, and I didn't know it was English Bay, but later on that year I visited Vancouver and recognized my dream. So sometimes it takes a leap of faith, and you don't know how it's going to turn out, but when you look back, you say, hey, that was great that I did that. And then, look out for your weaknesses. So what the main things are that get in your way. We've talked about a lot of them, but, there's some others as well. Stubbornness. And here's a good one that we haven't talked about so far. Lust. You might have an intuition like, oh, steer clear of this guy. Oh, this woman's not for me. But you'll be very sexually attracted to them. And just like the intellect and the emotions, the sex drive is very powerful. And it can tend to steamroller your intuition and cause you to ignore it. So you need to understand the drives of your body and also your own weaknesses so that you can watch out for them. And that thing that we were saying earlier about discerning what's your intuitive voice and what's a voice coming from your pants or somewhere else.
I would assume their religion would walk in there, like block in there as well, with intuition. When a lot of religions like to I hate to use the word control, but they like to guide their parishioners or their congregations. And a lot of times what you're doing is listening to one person's opinion as opposed to listening to your own.
Exactly.
To your own, and not just your spiritual nature, but your intuitive nature as well.
Exactly. So, you want to
Jonestown, for instance.
Yeah, you want to look for sources of programming. Examine your beliefs, what you're believing or appearing to be believing, and then who did it come from? Did it come from your priest? And do you really believe it? Or did it come from the local politician? And do you really believe it? Did it come from your mother or your father? Is it really your true information?
Yeah.
You've got to deprogram yourself from all of those other major influences in order to follow and act on your intuition.
But you're not saying to not heed their information. What you're saying is to check in about what they're saying.
Check if it's right for you.
Yeah.
Because you can share the same ideals and dreams as other people, but you just want to make sure that it is you and not them. And the other thing, and I'm going to sort of, what's the word? This will sound the opposite a bit than something I said earlier, which is seek out information. Sometimes external information can be really helpful because it can help direct your attention and help you be more detailed. So if you listen to the show a lot, you'll notice that if I get a caller, I might ask them a few questions to give me a bit more information. And the reason I do that is because then I can be more accurate, because I can really hone in on what they're asking about. So on the one hand, having a lot of information can put you off track if you're allowing it to influence what you're thinking and seeing. But on the other hand, when you're doing a reading for somebody else, if you're able to be neutral about the way you do it, it can be helpful because it can help you just really hone in on what's important.
Actually, I have a question.
Okay.
As you know, I just got off Facebook with my niece, and I suggested she, tune into the show and stuff like that. And she's having issues with her mother. And so how could my niece, what do you see there? How could my niece try to help my sister?
So remind me the name of your niece and the name of your sister.
Let's call my niece Lulu. And my sister Patty.
Okay. All right. And okay, and I think do you want to explain a little bit more about what the issues are?
Well, apparently my sister's having a hard time, and she's sort of taking it out on her kids. And
Okay.
mind you, my niece and nephew are not kids anymore.
They're adults.
They're adults, yeah. But she's despondent and upset and angry, and blames the way she is on her past, on her youth.
Okay, well, I will take a look at that
It's
for
all
you.
my fault, I guess. I don't know.
I'll take a look at that for you, Corey, and see what comes up. So give me a moment. And, of course, the way I do this is I go into a light trance, which helps me tune into the energy. So it just takes me a moment to locate the energy of the people that I'm looking at. So the first person that I'm tuning into is your sister. And actually, it's interesting. She looks like a ball of unresolved anger. She just looks like a ball of unresolved anger. Wow. And at the center of it all, at the center of the anger, is some fear. And on the outside of the anger is some pain. Let's call it emotional pain. So it's almost like the center is fear, then there's anger, and then there's the pain. And the anger is an attempt to move out of fear and clear out the pain. But it looks like your sister, she doesn't have a spiritual perspective at all. She doesn't have a concept that she's in her anger, she's in her emotion. It's almost like, like sometimes when people believe, it's almost like they believe that they are their emotional reality. There's no concept of being separate from that emotional reality. So I'm seeing that she's completely embroiled in that emotional reality and doesn't have a concept that she could stand outside of that and perceive herself as separate from that anger, which is something that she would need to do in order to have some mastery over her emotions. So I think that what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to give her a healing. And as I give her a healing, we'll see what shifts. But it also just looks like one of the beliefs is, and let's see if I can, it looks like there's a belief about always being in a fight or always being in a struggle, or that life is a struggle. It's a constant struggle. And it's not true, but it looks like a belief that dominates her reality. So, okay. And sometimes on this show we talk about how to own your space, and it looks like she's got quite a lot of what I call foreign energy in her crown chakra, and that's the energy center that helps you connect with your higher information. And so she's not connected with her higher information, and she's not grounded, so she's just this reactive ball of energy, really. So I'm giving her a hand, helping her to ground, so that she's got some other outlet for that anger, as opposed to just exploding. And I'm also just going to give her a little bit of a healing, so that she can connect with her higher information and get a higher perspective on her life and the reality of her life. But I must say, she looks pretty stuck in her ways. And then if I look at your niece, well, the first thing I would say to your niece, who we're calling Lulu, is you're not responsible for your mother. You can't change your mother. It looks like all of your attention is on your mother and how to solve your mother's problem. And guess what? You can't. the only person that you're responsible for is yourself. You're not responsible for anyone else unless you've got small children of your own. And I'm seeing that the dynamic between you and your mum is that it's almost like you're there to please her. You're there to serve her, and you're there to please her, and you're there to make her feel better. And that is not true. That is not what you're on this earth for. And it really doesn't matter what you do unless your mum decides for herself that she wants to change. Nothing's going to change. So the first thing I would suggest that you do is pull your focus and attention off your mother. Pull your energy back into your own space and deal with yourself, your own feelings and your own emotions about the situation. Because it looks like all your energy is just going into solving her problems. And I know you gave me some additional information, didn't you, Corey, that the dad is in hospital?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to give your niece a healing as well. And let's just talk a little bit about, in isolation of just putting all your energy into your mum, let's just take a look at, because when you do that, you're neglecting yourself. And then I'm just going to take a look at how we can help your niece. So you carry a lot of energy around your tummy, around your belly, and it's all past-time emotional energy, and a lot of it is other people's unresolved emotions and your attempt at healing them. And so it looks like you've been a sort of a healer all your life and a people pleaser and been taking responsibility for others all your life. And it looks to the degree that it's affecting your physical body a little bit. So I'm just giving you a hand with that. And the other thing I'm seeing is like you put other people's emotions first. And I'm not surprised growing up with a mum who is the way that your mum is. But your challenge is to listen to your own emotions and allow your own emotions to flow and to acknowledge that you have them and you have a right to have them and that you have your own needs and that you actually have a right to put your own needs first. I'm still giving you a healing, and I'm also just going to take a look at the rest of you because I was focusing there on the belly, the second chakra, the emotional center. And, something went down with the volume there, so give me a moment. All right, so I'm going to see what else is going on. You just look exhausted, and you look exhausted because your energy is it's just all being sucked up into other people's realities and other people's problems. So you need to set some, I shouldn't be telling you what to do, but a suggestion might be to set some boundaries around your mum and just carve back some time and space for yourself. And like I said, it looks like you really take on responsibility for her and for her pain, and you are not responsible for her pain. It looks like that whole pattern was all in place within her before you were even born. But it also looks like when you came along, you were meant to make her feel better. You know, having babies and having children was going to make her feel better, but it didn't, because somebody else is never the answer. But I'm seeing that that's why that whole dynamic got set up for you. You're meant to make your mum feel better, but that's not your job at all. So I guess the short answer to the question that you posed for your niece Corrie is to let go of her responsibility for your sister. welcome back to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley. We're in the last third of the show and we do have a caller. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Hi. So I believe your name's Annette, and what can we do for you?
Well, I was hoping to get your intuitive impressions on one of my daughters. Her and I have a really strong connection just on a spiritual level, and she's just been, I think she's coming into her own at this point, and I just wondered if there was some kind of insight you could offer on how I could, we don't live close to each other, but we are close, so we don't talk all the time.
So when you say coming into her own, what do you mean by that?
She went through about 13 years of turmoil since she was. Her father and I split up when she was 8, and I think she just sort of repressed it, and she's always had like anxiety, and she fell in with a crowd of people. She likes a family vibe, a lot of people around her, and she just fell in with the wrong crowd and made some bad decisions. And tends to have a boyfriend always. Seems to have like a boy in her life, even if she doesn't want to give all her time and attention. And I think that now she's just starting to get that she wants to be by herself, even though she likes somebody new. She doesn't want her space invaded. And I just wanted to know if there's anything at this point that I could offer besides, the good vibes and the sending light and love and being there when she needs to talk. But if there's any, on a spiritual level, deeper level, what you might.
Sure. What's the first name of your daughter, if you...
Edie.
Pardon?
E.T.
E.T.?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
With a P, like Peter.
Oh, E.C. I thought you said E.T.
No, not E.T., like Peter. Like Peter, Pete, and then Edie.
Okay. Well, I'll take a look at... so give me a moment while I tune in to you and your daughter. Well, the first thing I would say is I can see what you're talking about in terms of the strong connection between you. It looks like you're actually communicating all the time, whether when you're not on the phone or anything like that, but you're actually communicating all the time, because I'm seeing a really strong communication connection that goes from your fifth chakra to her fifth chakra. So let's just take a look at that. So one of the things that you might want to do is switch that fifth chakra connection to a fourth chakra connection, and I'll explain why. Because it looks as though sometimes what happens is that it's an energy cord, and sometimes what happens is she can't easily tune into her own inner voice, because she's sensing what you are wishing for her or what you are wanting for her, and that interferes with her own discernment about what she wants. Okay. Because sometimes kids resist a little bit, don't they? Their parents, so what I'm seeing is if you would disconnect that fifth chakra cord and instead just send out a little energy cord from your heart chakra, which just says I love you unconditionally. I love you no matter what. I just love you, and give her the support that way. I'm seeing that it would be easier for her to have her own clarity about what she wants. So that's the first thing in terms of what you can do to support her. And then, just to validate what you're saying, it looks like she really is going through what we might call a spiritual opening, because it looks like she really is going through a process of opening her own inner voice and clearing out what has interfered with her access to her own inner voice and also to her own inner knowing. And so I'm seeing like a lot of growth, particularly in her fifth chakra and her crown chakra. And it's all about, what do I know to be my truth? What do I know to be what I choose for myself in my life? And then it's the translating of the knowing into the expression of the voice. And I'm seeing that's like a really strong focus for her. And as she gets that going, then she's becoming much clearer about what are good supportive decisions for her to make for herself, and also being able to lay down some boundaries about what is and is not okay. And so each human goes through their own spiritual unfoldment, and like all of us, that's what's happening with her. And let me see if there's any other information that I can so your way of saying, well, it looks like she's coming into her own, I would say yes, it looks like she's really starting to open up and connect with her own higher information and own her own voice about what's right for her and what she wants in all areas of her life. And the way that you can help is to just stand back and say, you go, girl, I love you unconditionally, no matter what, and support her that way, instead of because oftentimes parents do have a sort of a sixth sense of seeing ahead of where the kid can see, but it's not going to help if you for them to impose what they think before the kid is ready. So the best thing is just pull back and give her the support that way. I'm going to see what else there is to say. Something else is coming up, so give me a second. There's a vibration of energy that I'm picking up that feels like a common energy that is shared between the two of you. And it feels like some kind of plan, or on a spiritual level, or part of your spiritual agreement, which relates to something that you are wanting to come together around. And I would say that it's some kind of creative project. And so that might, and usually I don't predict the future, but I'm just reading energy that I'm picking up that's there now. It could be something like at some point in her life when she has kids, you becoming involved in that, or it could be something else. But I'm just seeing that there is a really strong connection between you, and it looks like you have, on a spiritual level, got some plans for the unfoldment of your relationship as mother and daughter as well.
Yeah, we've always had something like really deep. I felt like she followed me into this life. And, I was going to ask you if you felt any past life information on us. But, yeah, no, it's been extremely intense. I love her so intensely, and to have such a connection with her. I don't have words to describe.
Yeah. Well, I can take a look and see a past life. We've got a little bit of a bad line, so I'm not hearing you terribly clearly, but I think you said that there's a really intense connection. And so I'll take a quick look, see if I can pick up a past life that would give you another perspective. So give me a second. And I'm just going to read it from your past life timeline, and I'm seeing for you at the moment looks like you're in a space of unfolding what gives you joy, really. So I'm just going to look for a past life that involves your daughter. I'm seeing that what's interesting is I'm seeing that there's obviously more than one past life, but there's an area of your timeline where there's some very intense interaction between the two of you, and it's the most recent history part of your timeline. So I'm seeing that there's a number of past lives in very recent history, very close together, so that it is almost like, and sometimes, you know, members of a soul group, looks like you have an agreement to do some sort of have an intense focus together with the goal of expanding both of your consciousness. And it looks like there's, like I said, you've been doing this over many lifetimes, recently in recent history. I'm going to see if I can pick out one that is the most. They're all quite relevant, but maybe I'll just pick one at random and see what it's about. So give me a second. So I'm seeing. It was the time when people had horse-drawn carriages, so motor vehicles hadn't been invented and trains hadn't been invented. I'm seeing, it looks like it's in Europe, and it looks like it's in the British Isles, and I want to say it's in the southern British Isles, and I'm seeing. It looks like you are in a male body, and I want to say that it's somewhere like Devon or Cornwall or somewhere like that. And you know that era where they wore those tricorn hats? Those hats, they've got they're like a triangle shape, and then their pants go down to their knees, and they've got stockings on,
Right.
and they've got a coat with a tail. So that's how you're dressed. So that would be the era. And I'm seeing you helping a lady out of a horse-drawn carriage. And that it's a pregnant lady. And I'm just going to follow it and see. I feel like it probably the relationship is this husband-wife. I'm just trying to discern whether she's the baby that's being carried, or whether she's the woman, and whether you're husband and wife or father and daughter. So I feel like your husband and wife. You're a little bit older than her, so you have a young wife, and I would say that the woman is your daughter. So in that lifetime, you were husband and wife, and it looks like you, as a man in that lifetime, took your role as the breadwinner, you know, the husband, the father. You took it very well. Seriously isn't the word, but it was like you embodied that role. That was who you were. That was important, that you take care of your family. And so I'm seeing you feel very protective over her, and she's quite young, actually. And so let me just see what else. Well, and it looks like it's her first child, and that she may possibly be your second wife, because it looks like you're perhaps in your 30s and she's still a teenager. And it looks as though you've had some experience of life. You've seen what can happen to women in childbirth. And it looks like you've already lost somebody very close to you in childbirth. And so she, to some extent, is like quite innocent going into this motherhood, sort of innocently, not thinking about the possibility of anything going wrong, whereas you're taking it very seriously because your life experiences has taught you that things can go wrong. Now, let's see what happens. So, but I'm seeing everything goes fine, and you end up having actually quite a big family together. But one of the things that you had to learn in that lifetime was to pull back and trust her, and let her do what she could do, And in that life, it looked like what she could do. She was like a really great mum, and she was really great at creating babies. And she had a strong body, and she never had any problems from that. And so again, it looks like the parallel here is that, you know, in that relationship, you had a tendency to take responsibility and want to control everything or protect her or look after her, and you had to learn how to just pull back and let her be her own person. And it looks like that dynamic is paralleled directly in this life, even though it's a mother-daughter relationship. It's the same learning.
You nailed it. Some of the things you said really resonated, because I do have this. I'm learning now to trust her, that she does do things in this innocent way, and you see her like just heading to what I see as could be disaster right in front of me, and it's been like this painful need to protect something that's so dear to you, followed me into this lifetime. So it's been a good learning for both of us.
Yeah.
Moving forward, I feel that. That was pretty intense. Thank you.
Oh, you're really welcome. Yeah, you're very welcome, and glad to be of assistance. So we're coming to the end of the show. We've just got a couple of minutes left. So Annette, thank you very much for phoning.
Thank you.
Yeah, and do call again next time you have a burning question.
I follow my intuition when I call.
Oh, good.
So I will pop in the next time I feel moved to do so. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Bye-bye.
Welcome to Unlocking Your Truth, another podcast by Dr. Lesley Phillips.